Good evening, everyone. Just going to let people get into the room here, and then we'll get started. Well, welcome to our second One Health seminar of the semester at Del Val. My name's Reg Hoyt. I'm co-chair of Animal Biotechnology and Conservation, and I'm also chair of the One Health Working Group of Delaware Valley University. And I want to welcome you all, especially you freshmen who maybe this is the first time you've been to one of our seminars. I want to tell you a little bit about One Health before we introduce our great speaker for this evening. Well, One Health is really something that just recognizes plainly that we're living on this planet. All of us are living on the same planet. We're interacting with our environment. We're interacting with the animals and plants on the planet. And that can be either a positive interaction or a negative interaction. So it really is up to us to make decisions, whether those personal decisions, local decisions, regional decisions, international decisions about how we're going to interact with the world. And really, even putting it plainer than that, we've got one planet, we've got one future together, and therefore one health is what we're talking about. And this is a transdisciplinary approach. The beauty to this is that we're recognizing that other people have great points of view. And no matter what your discipline or what it is that you're an expert in, if you're one of our community members, you can benefit from talking to others. Solving problems is much easier when we work together. So at Del Val, we kind of approach this from three different points of view. One is education. And so we've included in a number of classes. We've got individual instructors who bring it into their coursework because it's probably something they've been talking about, not necessarily using the term One Health, but certainly kind of a sustainability point of view. We also have a minor in One Health Communications at Del Val, and we've got a brand new Masters of Public Health in One Health. Research is something that we encourage from our students, and it's truly student research because the students come up with their own projects, and then mentors within the staff or faculty can help out with making that work for you. But I'd love to see a group of you get together, cross disciplines, and come up with a research project. We'd love to see that. And then lastly, it's outreach. And that's what these seminars are all about. We have 6 seminars every semester, and all of these are recorded. And they're placed at that website that's at the bottom, delval.edu/onehealth. So later on, if you missed something, you wanted to go back and see it, you can do that. Years from now, if you say, hey, listen, there was this great presentation and I'd like to hear about that again, just go back. You can find it at that website. So now I'm going to end my presentation and we're going to introduce our speaker for this evening. And so Dr. Laura Schoenle is a scientist, educator, an academic leader with a passion for cultivating inclusive, value-centered research environments. She holds degrees from Cornell University, the University of Arizona, and Virginia Tech. Her career is a mosaic, including experiences in veterinary offices, animal husbandry, wildlife research, focused on stress physiology, immunology, and infectious diseases, and leadership development. So that covers a whole lot of territory that I think many of you might be very interested in. Currently Associate Director for Undergraduate Research in the Office of Inclusive Excellence at Cornell Engineering, Laura leads initiatives to promote equitable access to high quality, mentored research experiences that support impactful careers. Laura, thank you so much for being with us this evening. Remind everybody that you can put your questions in Q&A, and after Laura's presentation is complete, I'll go ahead and read those to you, Laura, so that you'll have to be able to just focus on the answers. Thanks again.
Great, thank you. I am so happy to be here. Um, After Reg invited me to give this talk, I actually asked if we could chat first because I wasn't sure I was a good fit. I love the idea of One Health. I truly believe that embracing it could create a better future for all of us. And yet, like on this windy career path I took, I'm no longer conducting research in ecology. And you're not going to find One Health in my job description. But what I can share is how One Health can be of value for you, like it is for me. And it can be a basis for the choices that you're making in your career, but also in your personal life. And something that you can just come back to again and again. Um, and what I love about thinking about as a value is it helps guide decisions. So given that, I want to start off by telling you a little bit about like, who I am and who I am in a very like real sense. Like you heard a bit about my resume, but when I show up every day at work, at home, out in the world. So I'm in Ithaca, New York, um, at Cornell right now, and just the way I show up, it's not like people just see your resume. It's not. It doesn't walk around with you. So we all have this parts of our identity that I think really matter, and we're thinking about this One Health concept, this connectedness of human, animal, and the environment, like who we really are matters. So I'm going to share with you the way that I think about myself, and then we're going to have a little interactive component of this presentation where I want to hear that from you as well. So, here it goes. Here's who I am. Um, I am a mother and a mentor. I see myself as a friend. I'm a cat person, a scientist. I'm creative, and I'm always pushing limits. I'm a daughter and a partner. I'm very much a human being. Everything that comes with that. I'm a gardener. I'm a nature girl, a birder, an educator, a rock climber, a leader, an adventurer, and I also feel like I'm brave. I've worked really hard to push the limits and stand up for things that I believe in, and be the person I want to be even when it's really hard. And so that's who I am. That's how I'm trying to show up and share with you. Now I want to know from you. I would like you to submit words that describe how you see yourself and your identity. If you've never used Poll Everywhere before, you can use your phone or you can log in on your computer. And you don't have to make an account. You just type. I think that it asks you for like your name, but you just make up like like mine is Laura Schoenle 717. You just put in something, and I'd love you to just submit at least 3 words that are who you are. And you're just going to see me changing my screen share a little bit here. Thank you so much. I love how many adventurous students, lots of folks who love to love. Yeah, I think you probably said something lover and then lover shows up. Oh, I see cat, mom kind, intelligent, creative, gentle, environmentalist, selfless, a geek. You love some little frogs, animals. Nancy, nice, grandfather, kind. Wow, spontaneous, spiritual. You are just a wonderful group of people. There's so much to all of you. Neurodivergent, empathetic. Wow, awesome. We'll give it another 30 seconds or so. Compassionate, empathetic. Yeah. In this world that we're in, where there's so much changing so quickly, and so many things that we need to do, having empathetic, kind people, compassionate people, it's like we can't wish for more than that. Oh, that's awesome. Cool. Thank you so much. I'm curious. I'm seeing a bunch of great words like hawk, wolf, um, lizard, frog. Are you all people that enjoy? Can you add it in the chat? Are you people that enjoy those things, or are you identifying as a hawk or a lizard in a different kind of way? I think you can use the chat and just throw in um, that. Maybe you can. It's been a while since I've done a webinar. Cool. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for letting me know a little bit about you. All right, I am just going to change and go back to the presentation. So just one moment.
Love the word cloud. Those are great.
I will, and I can save and send that to you, Reg. But yeah, what an amazing group of people. Um, this is awesome. Thank you. Again, I really appreciate that. So a little look at where we're going to go today. I'm going to talk a little bit about One Health. Reg did a great introduction, and I love this interdisciplinary focus and the way that Del Valle is approaching it through education and research and outreach, all these different ways. So I'm going to show you another look at it. Then we're going to talk about my career path. And because most of you are students, I'm hoping that it can give you insights into maybe the way to think about your career, the way to think about it when things don't go the way you want them to. And then we'll have some little moments throughout this for some reflection from you all. Because I think that's really important. Like what makes engaging with a presentation important and is what you personally are getting out of it and what you're taking away. So I look forward to that as well. So let's start with One Health. We're all here because we care about this, right? The first time I heard about One Health was, I think, in like 2012. I did some research on the history of One Health and the term. I think the ideas have been around a long time, but the term wasn't really in existence until the early 2000s. And when I first thought about it, it was sort of like the way this picture represents it, right? The health of animals, people, and humans are all inextricably intertwined. That's for those of you who are like, my cat people out there, right? We know that diseases that affect cats can also infect us as people, right? So if our cats are healthy, we can be healthy. We know that's true. Like our cats could get COVID. Um, our cats could get, now the name of this disease that I'm thinking of is escaping my mind, but it's a toxoplasmosis. When cats have that, it actually attracts them to rat. Um, when well, basically when cats have that, it changes their behavior, and it also changes the behavior of their prey. And humans can get that too. So it has to do with our companion animals, our food animals, our livestock, our wildlife, as we know from diseases that hop birds to animals. And we also know that the health of the environment deeply impacts those animals, and then that can deeply impact us. So all of these things are tightly connected. And I really got deep into the concept of One Health when I started volunteering with the One Health Commission. Um, and I want to share with you the newer definition of health. So this image comes from a 2021 WHO One Health High Level Expert Panel. And what you see here in the middle, this one health circle with healthy ecosystems, healthy animals, healthy humans, like that's the outcome here. And I'm going to read this definition to you. And again, this is from the One Health Commission, and their website is down there if you're interested. They have a bunch of things going on for students, like competitions and events. And so please check out that website. So anyway, the One Health definition. One Health is a collaborative, multi-sectoral, and transdisciplinary approach. It's an approach, right? Like it's not just like a thing or an idea. It's a way of doing. It's working at local, regional, national, and global levels to achieve optimal health and well-being outcomes. And it's recognizing the interconnections between people, animals, plants, and their shared environment. And what this figure adds is we can see it at the bottom, let me see this, we can see at the bottom, like over here is this One Health concept, right? And over here are sectors and disciplines, meaning the areas where people are working in this, right? There are people working in animal care, right? We have our veterinarians, our zoos, our researchers, our conservationists, just all of us with pets, agriculture, right? Like they're working in those things. Environment, like, and that comes to things like conservation, park service, but also urban planners, um, folks doing construction, building up our environment. And then the human component too, right? Everything that we do, not just our healthcare systems, but everything about how we operate in the world, our education, our industries. So all those disciplines collaborating together is required to get us, to get us over here to this real like One Health. And this image also brings in the idea of society. And like that's all of us just in our lives and everyone around us, right? Society at all levels, like local, and the level of individual, rural, urban, mobile communities, regional, global, and inclusivity, equity, and access is a huge part of that everyone's involved in this, because we're all humans and we have historically had a tendency to ignore the health and well-being of some members of society. And so that particularly people who are less resourced and people of color. And so by really being sure we're inclusive in bringing in society, that's one of the other only things we can do to bring One Health into reality. And the reason why I think that matters for today, um, is because no matter this view of One Health, I think shows so many different ways that you can work and be and live in that space. You don't have to be any one thing. You don't have to be a veterinarian. You don't have to be a conservation scientist or work at the Park Service or doing restoration. You can be doing anything. We need people who are writing about this, people who are making movies, who are thinking about this. in as educators, when people are building new things. I work with engineers now, and engineers, I think, are a huge part of building up One Health and sustainability. So there's just so many places you can do this. And that really connects back to what we just did, that activity earlier. Like, who are you? Um, like what do you bring? Like, what are your skills? What are your gifts? And how can you push One Health forward? All right. So I heard already that most of you are students. I was going to give you another poll. But I think let's just skip this one for now so we have some more time to reflect later. Um, I'm going to start then moving into my career journey, and how I got where I am and how One Health has played into it. So we'll skip that. I grew up in Buffalo, New York is where I call home, go Bills. That's my daughter and the buffalo. Oh, I don't know how to make those. Sorry, Reg. I just realized those annotations I made on the screen are still up there. Will that make it go away? No. Thought it would go away when I changed the screen. Sorry about that.
No problem. We'll survive it.
All right, yeah. Okay. So yeah, those circles can just hang out, I guess. Um, so yeah, so I grew up in Buffalo, and I went to a Catholic all-girls school there. And what I think started me off on this sort of One Health journey was an internship I had my junior year of high school. I went to work at the Buffalo Zoo. Um, and it was a really hard internship to get. I was doing it because I actually didn't want to go to college. I didn't know what I was going to do. And my mom was like, Laura, you are going to college. You have to figure this out. So I was like, all right, gotta try some things. I was working as a waitress on the side, and then I got this internship at the zoo. By, I swear, sheer willpower, I just called. I submitted an application, and I got nothing. And then I called them and nothing. And I just kept calling them until they were like, "Oh, you're the girl that just keeps calling about this internship. Okay, yeah, sure, you can have an internship here." And so they put me in, with a keeper in the children's zoo. One of my jobs was, the keeper and I would go up on this mountain where you can see this bighorn sheep, and he would, use a leaf blower to blow all the poop down to the bottom, and my job was to sweep it up. Um, but I would work in the children's zoo. We had zebu, we had lorikeets, a lot of like some farm animals, reindeer, and as a keeper intern, your job is basically to do whatever the keeper tells you, which is mostly shoveling up excrement and preparing food for the animals. Um, Occasionally interacting with zoo guests, but not very much. Mostly just taking care of the animals. Um, and interestingly enough, this was one of the strangest internships I ever had. The keeper, really didn't want me there either. I think he really didn't want a high school intern following him around. So he would barely talk to me. And at and one day I was trying to I was trying to show initiative and like be proactive and be like, oh, he didn't even ask me to start cleaning the sheep yet. I'll just like hop right in. And it turned out that then I got headbutted by a sheep and like totally wiped out on the ground, because then he was like, oh, I should have told you that, like, I'm the only one that should go in this particular sheep pen, because the sheep can get aggressive and they know me. Anyway, it's a long story to say that's how I got into. I just The internship was weird and strange, and I loved the animals. I loved it. There was something about it that was really right for me. Um, and like where I'm from, if you're thinking you love animals and you want to have a career working with animals, there's pretty much one choice. um you're going to be a veterinarian. So that's what I did. I ended up applying to Cornell and getting in, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be a veterinarian, vetward bound. I started taking all the classes, and then I had a detour. It turned out that I found research. I took an animal behavior class, and so this is the first point, I think, where my career path kind of went a major shift here. Um, it's Yeah, it just went under a major shift. I thought I was all about the vet work, and then yeah, and then I'm just gonna, oh God, yes, okay, great. Sorry, that was gonna bother me. I could do research. I found research. I found that you could actually go outside and you could study animals. You could be out in nature watching them. So that sort of started this journey. And um, I wanted to focus a little bit on undergrad because this is where a lot of you are right now. And I would encourage you at this point in your career to just try everything that feels right. Just explore, see what's right for you. Because until you try it, you really don't know. Um, so my research journey at that point in life was sort of all over the place. I got started because a professor in this animal behavior class put up an overhead, which are just, just like a slide like this. We're saying like looking for research assistance for bird vocal behavior, so bird call stuff. Email this person if you're interested. So I did. They put me on studying. You can see in this first image over here, the white on the far left. This is the white-throated magpie jay from Costa Rica, and I never got to see this bird in person. I've still never been to Costa Rica. I worked with a PhD student who went to Costa Rica, followed these birds around, took recordings with a microphone, and I got all the recording files. And this is something like a mob call, like when you hear like crows, like rah rah rah. This is what that sounds like. So my job was to just cut them out, and I was recording from his files the context of every recording, and we were just looking at, when do birds do this? Do they have a language? Like, can they tell? They make all these calls. Are they all the same? Are they different? What can we learn from that? Um, and this is when we were starting to learn that animals can communicate with each other. Um, Something that sounds the same to us can mean something really different to an animal. Um, so those different calls, which sound the same, actually entail lots of information. Um, that I enjoyed that a lot. I was really into it. That project was coming to a close, and I was looking for something else to do. So, a faculty member who knew me from this project said, "Hey, one of my undergrads is graduating. She works in genetics on the banded red of Costa Rica. Do you want to help with that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do. That would be awesome." Still didn't get to go to Costa Rica, but I worked in a lab. I learned a lot about genetics. Back then, now we do all this like next gen sequencing and things, but back then we didn't. And we did microsatellites to do paternity testing. So I developed some genetic work to do paternity testing in birds. Um, and then I really wanted to try out conservation. And this place still does internships. If any of you are looking for a summer internship, it's called the Wetlands Institute in Stone Harbor, New Jersey. They do a lot of conservation work on a turtle named the diamondback terrapin. And this was the first time I was given freedom by a mentor to design my own project. As a research intern at the Wetlands Institute, you could participate in any of these long-term ongoing projects, which were collecting spectacular data about, one of the major threats to these turtles is car accidents. Female terrapins come out of the water to breed, and otherwise they spend the rest of their lives in the marsh. So they have to come out to lay their eggs, and to do that, they often have to cross the road to get from the marsh to a suitable nesting site. And so one of the things we did was like study that. Like we collected data on that, and they've been doing that for a decade. So if you're looking for an internship, it's a great place. But the director there, Roger, he gave me the chance to design my own project. And so it was the first time I designed an experiment, and I was looking at soil quality and nest site selection, um, and hatching success in the turtles. So we were looking at where they laid nests. We would watch them lay nests. We would build exclosures around them so raccoons couldn't come and dig them up and eat them. And then we'd test the soil, look at what was the particles in the soil were like. And we did find that there were some differences in nest site quality. And so all these things, right, are putting that. What was cool about that work is you could participate in something bigger than you and do something small that would either help us grow our knowledge, um, and help us make choices about what do we do to protect these animals. And so that was a cool place because all the research was applied. It was all centered at making choices to protect those animals. Went back to Cornell, did some more research on crows, mostly genetic work. Um, and we looked at the effect of West Nile virus on these birds and how it impacted the relationships in bird communities. And all of that led to my first job after graduation, which was studying that beautiful pink bird, the galah, or also called the rose-breasted cockatoo in Australia. So that was again, that job was basically running around the Australian bush with a microphone chasing birds around, and it's hard to imagine anything more fun than that for your first job after college. So the take home message here is, you know, all of this work as an undergraduate was really a gateway to adventure. I got to see new things. I fell in love with like wildlife work, and birds in particular. I just didn't know that birds were so incredible. I did learn though that um, that animal behavior research didn't feel right for me. By the time my period in Australia was over, I felt like that work was a bit too. I'm gonna say up front. My assessment was wrong. I'm not right in this. But back then, what I thought was that animal behavior work was too qualitative, too based on the interpretation of the viewer, too much bias. It wasn't valuable. So I was like, all right, that doesn't work. I'm, must probably going to be a veterinarian. Let's go back to that. Moved to Arizona where my boyfriend at the time was living. And I moved there in 2007, 2008, and there was like a huge stock market crash and economic crisis then, and there were like no jobs. So what I ended up doing was I did work as a vet tech, making $7 an hour, but that wasn't enough to survive. So I also started doing dog grooming. And I was like living in an aunt's guest house for a while, and I was really struggling. Um, I'm sure being a vet tech can be a really great position. The places that I worked, it unfortunately wasn't. There, I had sort of emotionally abusive bosses. Dog grooming is really bad for your lungs, while his hair flying around. It was awful. So at this point, I was not happy with my life, with my job. And oops. So the big question is, you're not happy with your job, like what's next? And the temptation here, I think sometimes is like to blame the world, like to say, oh, the stock market crisis, or oh, everything is so hard right now because of the world. But what I recommend and what's been helpful for me is to shine that light inward and say like, okay, I'm not happy, or there's something in the world that I don't like. Let me look inward and see what I can do about it. So um, th- this so the next step is like, what do I do next? How do I figure it out? Um, and this is my mini segue into career advising. When you're thinking about your job and like, what do you do next? Like, what's the next step for you? These are the three questions I think about. What do I enjoy? What do I like doing? What am I good at? And what can I get paid to do? So asking myself those questions, what do I enjoy? I love doing that turtle work, right? Being out there with the turtles. And this is a photo from an outreach event where we were talking about the turtles and sharing it with the community. People came in to learn about them and learn about conservation. I loved that communication work. It was fantastic. It was fun. And I thought, what am I good at? I'm good at science. Like I love science. I'm good at that. And then what can I get paid to do? So like how can I put together this sort of outreach communication and science? And for me, I was like, aha, teaching, that's the thing. So in Arizona, went and got my master's degree in education. At this point, I think I'm around 24, 25 years old. Um, and my I got my master's in ed at University of Arizona. Um, Learning to teach is one of the most valuable skills. The concepts, the way to design a good lesson, the way to learn about people, those things are so transferable. Um, And so my teaching job, I took a job at South Point Catholic High School. Again, economics was shaping my decisions there. Teachers were getting fired every single year in Arizona in the public school system and then reassigned. It didn't happen at private schools. So I took a job at a Catholic high school and taught biology, environmental science, and again, I learned so much from this, even though I don't teach in this traditional classroom sense anymore. I learned about how people learned. I learned, and maybe the biggest lesson here was that the way other people act or behave is not about you, it's about them. When people are hard to deal with, in case of teaching students, they're like misbehaving. Um, at work, it's maybe because they're kind of grumpy or they seem mean. Like check in with people. Like, how are you doing? What's going on? Because a lot of times it's not about you. It's about what's going on. And surprisingly to me, teaching actually led me back to research. I heard about this really cool program with the University of Arizona, funded by the Research Corporation for Science, and I was like, yeah, I want to do research with my students. So I made a proposal to collaborate with a professor, Gary Christopherson. He was a GIS specialist, and I brought the bird knowledge. And we decided to look at how wildfires impacted bird populations, and not in the short term, like in the long term. So looking, 10 years after a major fire, how did the bird populations resettle? And I got to do that with my students. So you can see this is the mountains of Arizona where we were doing our work. And I trained 3 high school students to come up in the mountains with me. And this is Noah and identify birds. And Noah's now works for the Arizona Park Service. So yeah, again, these little things can make a big difference. So I did this and I loved it. And I liked teaching and I felt like I was making a difference in the world. And then but I loved research. And I thought, okay, I got to go back to that. That's what's next for me. So I was like, well, you didn't like animal behavior, so what are you gonna do? So I started to research, like, what do I want to study if I'm going to do a PhD? And that's when I learned about One Health, animals, humans, environment. And I was like, yes, this is it. This is the thing. Um, and I started reading a lot of pop science books, like things like you may have heard of, like The Hot Zone, Your Inner Fish, When Smoke Ran Like Water. And then this book was probably the one that sort of turned me on this next path, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. It's about stress and coping with disease, and like why do humans get all these stress diseases and animals don't? How do animals deal with stress? And I, as a high stress worrying person, um, thought that would be fascinating. So went that way and went to get my PhD. And I thought, all right, I want to study stress in a way that matters. So before I even got into grad school, I applied to a grant called from the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, to fund my research. And I proposed a study on mercury, how mercury affects wild birds. And I was planning on looking at it in looking at the links between mercury and wild birds, and also other challenges that they face, like infectious diseases, specifically avian malaria, because we just knew that birds in Canada were impacted by malaria. And I was a little bit naive at this point. I thought that answering that question would be the thing that would be like my way. I could change the world, right? Like I can find out. If I figure this out, that knowledge is going to change the way we clean up mercury sites and the way we think about contaminants and disease. Like, this is going to make a difference. And that brings us back to that One Health mindset, right? It's so complicated. Um, it just understanding, just knowledge alone isn't enough. Knowing that something is a problem doesn't tell us what's the best way to fix it. How are the communities impacted? If we try to fix something, how is it going to impact the people? How is it going to impact the other wildlife? Anyway, it's very, very complicated. So I did that though. I ran the study. I was like, all right, we went out there. This is me and my field assistant Sophie in the marsh out there, catching these birds, taking blood samples. And we did that work my first year, and we found pretty much no. We studied them at the equivalent of an EPA Superfund site, but in Canada. And we found basically no mercury in the birds. In fact, the levels that we found were higher at our reference non-contaminated sites than our actual contaminated site. And but the amounts were so small, it was really meaningless. And so that basically took a whole. I was like, all right, well, that can't be your dissertation. So switching gears again, right? Like take a big detour. And this is a time where I was like, you know what? I wanted to do this work. I wanted to be a conservationist, do biology that was going to make the world better. But when I followed the research questions and the results that I found, I ended up taking them in a different direction. I went towards basic science, and I started really looking at, again, I went back to the stress hormones, but I really looked at the impacts of those hormones on infectious diseases. And I could talk about that all day, but in reality, that what I learned was valuable and contributing to a greater pool of knowledge, but it wouldn't have any impacts right away. Um, it was going to be long. It was that would be way down the road. And while I was doing this sort of more basic science, I did join a PhD program looking at the interfaces of global change. So I started learning about things like I did a lot of outreach. We went to Washington D.C. and talked to our representatives, ran into Hillary Clinton, and we were learning about like science and policy and how do you actually make change based on science. And that sent me to another detour here. Um, I I thought, okay, now I'm gonna go get a postdoc. Um, and this is the part where I thought, this is it. I'm gonna take a postdoc and I'm gonna be a One Health scientist. I networked like crazy. I met up with the One Health Commission. I met up with folks from the One Health Initiative, different researchers. I applied for 3 different postdoctoral research positions. Those are positions for like after you have your PhD, but before. It's sort of like a temporary research gig. I applied for one for Nature RX, like how nature affects humans. I applied for one looking at more contaminants in birds and apple orchards, and yeah, and then another one from NIH and National Science Foundation, and got none of them. So I needed a job, so I did get one. I took a postdoc again, more basic science, the effects of body size in mammals, and this got me back into the zoos. I was collecting blood from animals, all from zoos from the size of a elephant shrew all the way to an elephant, and we were looking at the immune response. And so I'm not going to go into this detail of that research, but um, it was good research, but it sort of threw me into this place where it was a job. I was doing something I did enjoy. I got to travel. I got to go to conferences all over the world. And I wasn't able to live with my spouse. The workload and the pace to be successful in this field was incredibly intense. I found myself working crazy amount of hours. I did get I got worn down. So that was a point where this was like a real turning point for me. And things really changed. So another detour, right? I stopped and I started thinking about like my values. And this is something that I would encourage you to do. There's a great values exercise. If you Google Brene Brown values exercise, there's an awesome one. And I found that I really needed to prioritize other things for a little while than my career, like my family, my husband, myself, and my body. So I left my postdoc. I basically took a pause on being a scientist because that career didn't work with the other parts of my life that I wanted. So I moved to Ithaca, where I live now. I got a job in the Office of Undergrad Biology. I worked with students. I did advising. I helped students on all kinds of different career paths in the life sciences. Um, and that was great for a while. It was good. But that still wasn't quite it. So I don't even know what job I'm on right now, like number 6 or 7. Um, So then I took the next thing that really caused the change in my life was this. I had this baby, and she changed how I viewed everything, work, life, and yeah, and I also at this point, right, was sort of really feeling I was helping people and helping students, but I was feeling really far from making a difference in the world the way I wanted to. I didn't feel like the One Health thing was there. So when I had my daughter, my focus shift from work to like my life. And I was like, okay, I'm going to start a garden. I'm going to put a wildflower garden in my yard. I'm going to make I'm going to build, swales for water management. I'm going to, I'm actually still working on this. There's a big hole in my yard right now, but it's how can I do things in my life to make a difference? So I've been doing that for the last couple of years. And then another opportunity came up, and I'm just going to wind down a little bit with this, where I got to come back to sort of a One Health focus, and not in the way that I expected. I really thought I was going to be a researcher and studying a researcher in ecology and studying that world and contributing to health that way. But what I learned along the way is some of my skills, like what are you good at? What can you make a difference? What do you like? What are you good at? And what will they pay you for? I found I do work well with people, and I work well with scientists, because I understand how they work. So that enabled me to get this job I'm in right now. It was a new job. I'm the first person to have it. I work in the College of Engineering. I support undergrad research. And the major thing I'm working on right now is working on improving the culture of research. So I'm able to bring the concepts of leadership and team development, the things that you mentioned, and like what those things are about you, right? Like empathy, kindness, caring, creativity, helping bring those kinds of skills and well-being into the research space. Um, and so that is where I am now and what I'm doing. And this is a picture of one of the research groups I was working with, playing some silly games. But we're trying to do something that I think is pretty exciting and innovative, and we're calling it radical humanity in research. But we're centering the humanness, putting humans first in the research spaces. And if we focus on meeting the needs of those people, then we can hopefully do better science and better engineering. And being back in engineering is amazing because I'm working with so many folks working on building us a more sustainable future, both in terms of ecosystem restoration, water management, building sustainable batteries, making, generative AI energy efficient. And so it's a place where I found that I can apply my skills and in my way, and I think I'm making a difference. So with that, that's my really long, convoluted um, career journey. And One Health has always been a part of it, in and out, even though it didn't end up being part of it the way I thought it would. So I'm thank you for letting me share this with you. And I'd love to take questions about from you.
Great, great, Laura. I don't think so much about your career has done as being detours, but it's just that path that you never expect, isn't it? That you end up wandering about going, okay, well, I experienced this, but maybe it's not quite what I'm looking for. Um, I know that probably the vast majority of people have very similar kinds of winding around. We often talk to people and we're thinking, wow, these people knew exactly what was going on, from an early age, and they went on and did this, and they've done great, wonderful things, and they never deviated from that. I don't think that's normal. That the vast majority of
Yeah.
people are having to feel their way along in their careers. I certainly thought when I was in junior high school, I knew exactly what I was going to do, uh, and that's been a part of my life. But there's been a lot of richness that's come from doing a lot of other stuff too.
Yeah. And I feel also really good about thinking. like your career doesn't have to isn't always going to be the priority, and that's okay too. Like your career is just part of you and part of who you are. I think that was like a big, like things that felt like detours at the time ended up really being places where I grew, and let me do the things that I do now, which I'm really happy.
I really applaud you for that, because I think for many of us, including myself, I think that jobs just took too much, and maybe, the things that were more important, or that things I could have faced more, would have been better for me as well. And yeah, and now looking for me, I'm near the end of my career, and it's like, what next? Well, that's something exciting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, we've got several questions here, particularly from Christian. Christian has asked a lot of different questions. We'll see if we can pick out some of these. We've got just a few minutes here. Um, is there any way that you can apply this One Health style into our daily life and things that we do in our daily life?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, we are in a world there's like the little things, right? There's like bring your reusable mug, bring, the things like with your yard, don't have a lawn, right? If you own your own space, like put stuff in there for pollinators, like make your space go back to nature. Get vaccinated, like follow the science on public health and support your family to do this, the same. And I think just walking the talk, right? Like saying what you believe in, and then like finding the ways that you can live it. And it's not always going to be perfect, right? Like we know that one of the best things we can do for climate health is to not eat meat. Um, from there's I still eat meat, not every day, but I haven't given it up entirely. Like so, and there's reasons for that, right? Like family reasons, like location reasons, like culture, like um but it's also just a choice. So it's really thinking about what you care about and how you want to make that difference.
Yeah, I think that's really important, that One Health gets absorbed into your life, that it's not just thinking outwards, but thinking inwards as well. And that you take responsibility. Uh, we have so much impact on the earth that we have tremendous responsibility as a species, but also as individuals.
Yeah.
Let's see here. We've got, Christian asked another one that I particularly like. What is it like talking to government officials about conservation and stuff like that?
Oh my gosh, it's so interesting. They view the world so differently. Like their priorities are different. So I as a like in general, we associate like the conservationist style with the Democratic Party and like the anti-environment with Republican Party. And that's not always true. And luckily that's changing, right? So the representative we met with in Virginia, I was in Virginia at the time with our Virginia rep. He was a Republican who was establishing a climate change alliance. And his approaches to climate change were different than a lot of the Democrats. He was like, I don't want to do more regulation. I want to offer carbon taxes and and business incentives and tax like so. And the other thing is like they don't ever see one issue. Like if you like right now, if you went to talk to somebody about science funding and saying, I really care about science funding, they're thinking about, okay, how is that going to affect all of my constituents? Which ones of them actually care about it? And how is that going to affect my ability to get elected next time? And so their whole view is very different. And I think your experience will also change depending on the politician. Some are very hard party liners. Some of them are, I think the moderates are the most interesting, the ones that are really thinking, are really thoughtful about their stances on some of these issues. And yeah, which I just find really interesting.
I think another thing that probably all of you ought to be aware of is that, when you either write, talk to, or go to the offices of any representatives, if you say, I'm a constituent, that carries weight. That carries weight. You can go with a group of people and you're all saying the same thing and saying, we're here to ask you to do whatever. But if none of you are constituents of this person, they can go, yes, thank you very much for the information. But if you're a constituent, they're going to take your name down. They want to know who it is that's talking to them, and that they're listening to the voices of those people who elected them in the first place.
Yeah. Don't discount your local officials either, like state
Yeah.
legislature. Like, you can have a lot of like the state. We always focus on the federal, it feels like, but there's a lot happening at the state level. Um, and you can actually get to talk to those people easily. Like you call your
Hmm.
yeah, you call the senator, you talk to a staffer, but you can, actually go meet your state reps.
I once wrote an email to my state representative. And then out of the blue, I got a telephone call from him and said, "Can you come down to my office? I'd like to talk to you about this." Whoa.
Awesome.
So Anonymous has a question here. As someone making a complete career 180 after Del Val, what advice can you give? Considering it is very scary, I
Yeah.
am going from conservation to applying for an MA in history. How do you handle giving up my animal dreams for this switch?
Oh gosh. It is very scary, right? Change is so scary. And when you think, yeah, it's scary. I, I guess I one part of it is I don't think I've ever given up my animal dreams.
Yeah.
Um, I when I was a high school teacher, I volunteered in Arizona with the Hummingbird Monitoring Network. So we'd catch hummingbirds for monitoring like bird migration. I didn't give it up, right? Now I being in an office is hard for me. I like being outside. So I work at the Cornell Outdoor Education Team and Leadership Center occasionally on site. Not all the time. But like because it gets me out in the woods, right? I still go birding. I haven't given it up. I've got cats. I love them. Um, but I think that like the fear is real, and I think it's reminding yourself why you're doing what you're doing. I think keeping centered, and for me, like I do that values exercise, and like I have it on a post-it note that I stick next to my office, and I look. I'm like, when I'm feeling stressed or overwhelmed, I look at this and I'm like, okay, is this thing that's stressing me out? Does it align with my values? Like, which of them is it pushing on or not? Like, how much should I care about this thing? Um, and when it comes to switching careers, right? Like for me, like, and for a lot of us, we have to make money. We have to make a living, and so you have to put that there. And then you can, as long as your basic needs are taken care of, then you have this flexibility to explore. And that was probably the best advice someone gave me, was like, and that's actually how I got involved with the One Health Commission. Was I wanted to do One Health, my job wasn't doing it, so I volunteered as I led their education committee for a few years. Like, yeah, just I know it's hard. Good luck. It's not, nothing's going to make it easy, but stick to your values and just keep finding little ways to do the things that make you happy.
Yeah, I agree with you, Laura, that there's no reason to give up your animal component. Just going outside, you're going to have weekends, you're going to have evenings. You can go outside and just enjoy the environment, enjoy what's around you. That kind of ties into Nature RX, doesn't it? That's going to help you with your stress if
Oh
you get
yeah,
out.
yeah,
And volunteering is always a great way that, if you can't commit to necessarily doing something, but you want to have it still in your life, there are lots and lots of nature centers and organizations that need help. And again, you don't have to do it 40 hours a week. Just what you can is going to be beneficial to you and to them as well.
yeah, yeah.
And I'll wrap this up. I think you've done a fabulous job with. First, I want to thank you so much for bringing us into your life. That in following your path, I think it's important for people to understand that life gets complex, and that you've just kind of be open to where you're going. And that kind of leads to Tyler's question. Tyler was asking, uh, how do you balance all these degrees and internships in your life? How did you manage that?
Oh gosh, one at a time, right? Like one at a time. I am I, okay. So I work at Cornell, right, with these students who are like hyper motivated, and they try to do all these things at once and they burn themselves out. And that's just not the way to do it. Like one thing at a time, right? Like the turtle internship, that was one summer. I might have done one of the birds things for like 2 semesters. I didn't do any of that stuff simultaneously. Um, with the only thing I did have any overlap with was the vet tech dog grooming and my teaching degree because I needed a little bit of a job. And then I started substitute teaching, and so to make a little money while I did my degree. Um, but yeah, and you step back. There are times in your life when you can do a lot and you can go, 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 go. And there's times in your life when you can't. Um, yeah. And right now I'm in a time where I can't. And that's actually, it's okay too. Because the reasons that I can't are good reasons. Like there's things that I'm enjoying out of doing. I would love to work for Cornell Outdoor Education more, but I can't. I gotta be home. I got a parent. Gotta be around my help my parents out. Like it's just, yeah.
And you got to enjoy where you are, don't you? And just be thankful for what you have.
And
And again, yeah. Well, thank you so much. We're a little bit over time, but this has been a wonderful travel with you across your life. I think this is going to be incredibly useful to our students. I'll be discussing it with one of my classes tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to say. I'm sure that you've sparked a lot of questions and maybe eased a little bit of fear in some folks, or at least share that they have fear, you've had fear, we've all had fear.
you all can look me up on, Google me and find my email at Cornell if you want. The next couple weeks
And I'll
probably.
share it as well. If
Oh,
anyone wants to
perfect.
just contact me, and I'll be happy to pass it on if Laura's fine with that.
Yeah, I am. I'm happy to
Good,
chat with
good.
folks.
Well, I want to wish you and everyone that joined us this evening a wonderful evening. You take care, and thanks so much, Laura.
Thanks. Goodbye.
Good night.